Well, good morning. I really appreciate having this opportunity to be with you again and meeting many of you for the first time. You know, so much has already been said about leadership, the requirements of leaders in making change, and what we're about to do is a series of talks of leaders that are going to talk about their own leadership journeys in a hope that they might ignite you, that they might inspire you, and that they might find ways that you resonate, but also that they challenge you. And so they're going to speak about their own individual challenges and opportunities they've been pursuing, but then also we're going to spend some time trying to delve out. I really want to echo Professor Zeliko's excellent talk and talk about transnational challenges, because I think you're going to find that our speakers are going to do just that. They're each individually going to be talking about what they've been doing, but I think everyone in this room will resonate with the way they are finding themselves in their own nations and the way they are bringing themselves to the task that they're ahead. So look forward to that. I think it's a wonderful adjunct to the talk that we just had. Let me tell you a little bit about them. You can all read, I suspect, but let me tell you briefly what we've assembled for you. We have 2 Fulbright scholars and 2 physicians. We have a journalist, and we have an elected official. We have individuals who are working in areas as diverse as women's empowerment, as diverse as HIV/AIDS, thinking about issues of low-income populations and health. Individuals that are thinking about the rule of law and freedom in the press. And so you'll find as well that each of them are pulling on themes that, in fact, cross-cut. All of these individuals are well aware of the role of 3 sectors in working together, and I think you'll find that they'll talk about those things. I'm going to start from my farthest right, just so you can acquaint yourselves with who they might be. Ling Chua is here. She's the elected official, and she can talk about some of the things that she's been doing around women's empowerment. She'll give a presentation to that effect. I love saying this, Dr. Excellent. It's just a wonderful name. I love that moment to say that word. Dr. Excellent will talk about her work in Haiti around HIV/AIDS. I have to say this next Ignite speaker is not someone that's new to me or many of us. Toyosi Ogunseye is, in fact, one of our Mandela Washington Fellows, and she's an old friend. And we're super glad to see her again. She is the publisher, editor of the largest media publication in Nigeria. And so she comes right along the lines of some of the things we've just been talking about. And Dr. Htat will come in and talk about his work in public health. And so with no further ado, I will get out of the way. They will talk. Save your questions. Enjoy yourselves. Who's going to bring up the presentation?
So good morning, everyone. My name is Htat. I'm from Myanmar, Burma. Could you please raise your hand if you know where Myanmar is? Wow. A lot of people know where Myanmar is. For those who don't know where Myanmar is, that's the country between China and India, and with population about 51 million. So I'm currently doing my Master of Public Health program at Johns Hopkins, and also from the Foreign Fulbright program. First of all, I'd like to thank the Presidential Precinct program, University of Virginia, Department of State, and IIE for giving me such an honorary opportunity to speak here. So I'd like to give you a little bit of the background about how we practice the implement the public health in Myanmar. So after earning my medical degree 11 years ago, I joined a public health organization called Population Services International, PSI, in Myanmar. So as you may know, at that time, Myanmar was ruled by the military government for more than 5 decades. and health system was one of the lowest globally. And they practiced very severe restriction on the movement of all international organizations. So I'd like to share my experience about how we serve in those very difficult situations to millions of people. So our work, we address major contributors of burden of disease, and we work mainly with the private sector. So you may see in the picture that we work with retailers and pharmacies to distribute essential health products, and we work with general practitioners and community health workers to provide health service to poor and vulnerable populations. And we have largest HIV prevention program in the country, and so we serve to the thousands of the marginalized population. So during my 11 years in PSI, I stepped up from a very junior staff to senior management team. So last 5 years, I oversaw organizational strategies, annual plans, and managed behavior change communications campaign. So we also face a lot of challenges. So one of the big challenges that we faced was in, next slide please, in 2008, we have very rough time in 2008. So at that time, a Category 4 cyclone hit the country, and hundreds of thousands of lives were lost within a night. So then I led a medical team there and treated thousands of victims for during 3 months duration. I found so many challenges, but I found those challenges are interesting. So the lesson I have learned from that event was that the crucibles are always unplanned, and you have to be prepared. You have to manage it effectively with very limited resources. And the topic is about the insight to the leadership. So I'm not the leadership guru, but I have some insight that I've learned about during my 11 years career. So my personal leadership philosophy is about the transformational leadership. I believe that the leaders are evolving across the career. Their internal capability and the action logic to transform your personal and organizational values and culture. So leadership is kind of a journey. So there are core values that I believe in for their transformational leadership. So in the middle, there's transformational leadership. There are core values. Everybody has different values. But what I believe about one fundamental values of all leaders is the integrity. We have to be, our moral values, our moral principles have to be tested through the tough times. And all the leaders, we should have a clear and compelling vision to lead others. And I'm also a big believer in team building. The world is very competitive, and the teams can determine the rise and falls of the organizations. The other 2 values that I believe in are somewhat contradictory and paradoxical. Those are personal humility and professional will. So we have to be modest, humble, and are aware of our own limitations. At the same time, we have to be determined that we have to be very sensitive for mediocrity, and our way and action has to follow their professional standards. However, I think that we have to accept the reality of incompleteness as a leader, and we have to build trust and relationship with people expressing different viewpoints. So I hope most of you know who this lady is, that she said, I always think challenges are very interesting and then have you be a better person. So transformation is about the change. Any change, any reform, there will be losers. So there will be ferocious fight. So we have to be very committed and focused, go through it in a humble way. If you win, you have to be humble. And what I believe is in transformational leadership, it is about how you are evolving and how you are helping the world to be a better place. I always believe, even in the most difficult times, there is a will to help others. If you feel helpless, help others. If you are free, use your freedom to help others, right? So at the end of the day, the transformational leadership is how That what determines you as a leader. How do you follow your moral principle and moral value to transform the world to be a better place? Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Toyosi Ogunseye from Nigeria. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank the United States Department of State and the Presidential Precinct for giving me the opportunity to talk about my leadership journey. Most of the time, people ask me, what is it like to be the first female editor of Nigeria's biggest newspaper and to be a young person in that position? In the next 5 minutes, I'll share with you the lessons I've learned. And a good way to start will be to introduce you to a few members of my team. I hope that the rest of them wouldn't be upset with me that they're not on the slides. The first person on the screen is Arukaino Mukoro. Last year, Arukaino Mukoro won the CNN African Prize, the biggest journalism prize on the African continent for his reporting. Arukaino Mukoro joined Sunday Punch less than 3 years ago. He wasn't employed as an investigative journalist. He was employed as a news reporter. But I found that investigative journalism is Arukaino's passion. So what we did was to work on his passion, and in less than 3 years, he won that prize. And I think as leaders, most of the time, we're very fixated with the goals we want to achieve for organizations, and in the process, we force people to do things the way we want them to do it, not looking at their passions. I think it's very critical for us to look at members of our team as individuals and see how their passions can give us the result we want. And Arukaino Mukoro is a very good example of that. Next on the slide is Bayo Akinloye. Bayo Akinloye is the one without a suit and stripes beside Hillary Clinton. Bayo Akinloye was on the IVLP program last year. The United States Embassy in Nigeria wrote him a letter saying that they were so impressed by his reporting of the elections, and because of that, Bayo was going to attend the IVLP. He was excited, and I told him that excellence will take you everywhere. I think that a core attribute of leadership is excellence, but most of the time when we are striving towards excellence for organizations or for ourselves, I think it's critical that we ensure that members of our team own excellence. How do I mean by that? Most of the time we want people to be excellent on our team for ourselves and for the organization, but what is in it for them when they're excellent? It's important they own that excellence. So yes, Bayo did excellent reporting for the newspaper. Our readers liked it. I looked like a fantastic editor, but at the end of the day, there's something in it for Bayo himself. And that is what I think we need to strive to do. We want people to be excellent, but what is in it for them? It's critical that our followers just are not excellent because we want the organization to look good, but because we want it for their own good. Next on the slide is Moturayo Joel. Moturayo is very dear to me. Before I became editor 3 years ago, Moturayo was on the education desk, went the newsroom together, and she was unhappy all of the time. It was obvious that she didn't like to be on the education desk. So when I became editor of the newspaper, I said, Moturayo, would you like to work with me? She said yes. So I pulled her from the education desk to Sunday Punch. And in less than 2 years, that's Moturayo there receiving a prize, the Wally Shoyinka Prize. And Moturayo is one of our best reporters in the newspaper. And what did we do with Moturayo? In Moturayo's case, it's about recognizing talent. She's been doing education all her life, and she didn't like it. She was frustrated. She couldn't talk about it. But I knew there was more about her than reporting education. Right now, she's one of the best investigative reporters in Nigeria. Last year, she did a story about how young Nigerian girls are selling their eggs for money. And she went on the cover pretending to sell her eggs to different fertility clinics, and she came out with a fantastic story that won her so many accolades. I tease her all the time that I'm very glad I didn't leave you in education. I mean, you wouldn't be shining all over the place today. So I think as leaders, it's very critical for us to find people, find talent in organizations that nobody's talking about them. We need to pay attention to the people that are unhappy, because at the end of the day, these people may be the people we need for the result we want to achieve. The next person I want to talk about is Toby Awurinde. I call him the baby. He joined the organization as a fresh graduate. He was just 20 years old, and he graduated from our journalism school at the Punch, and I picked him because of his courage. I think as leaders, courage is a very important attribute, not just courage for ourselves, but courage in the people we work with. Last year, I went undercover to expose the corruption in Nigeria's education sector. He pretended to be a student writing the final year examinations of a secondary school. He got the forms and wore school uniforms and did recordings of how teachers were giving students the results in class and how they were using social media to leak results in different schools. And when I look at Toby, who is just 23 years old right now and is doing fantastic work for himself, I think that it's a reminder for me that as leaders, we have to constantly look for people that are courageous enough to do the job, people that are passionate, people that are determined to give us results. The last slide there is me and my team. That was on Valentine's Day. Toby brought cake to the office. My concept of leadership is not leaders and followers. My concept of leadership is leaders and other leaders. Everybody on my team is a leader. I think that most of the time we're so fixated with being the leader and looking at people on our team as followers. And if we keep looking at them as followers, they will remain followers. How do we convert followers to leaders? We convert followers to leaders by ensuring that we drive for excellence, recognize talent, we look for people that are courageous, and at the end of the day, you just find that you're a facilitator for other leaders. So when people ask me, who am I say, I'm just a facilitator of these wonderful leaders. They're no longer followers. Thank you.
Wow. Good morning, everyone. The question beforehand is, why should you pay attention to the next 4 minutes and learn about my proposal? My name is Lina. I'm a physician from Haiti and Fulbright scholar, pursuing a master in public health leadership at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. For years, I had the opportunity to direct HIV/AIDS and community health programs in Haiti for 4 years. And it was basically after the earthquake, very tough moment. I have always worked in hospitals that focusing on maternal and child health. And my main driver was to really improve the quality of that minority group. Therefore, when I look at the call for proposal, I said, that's my people. My target will talk about women, youth, and minority groups. And from my experience, my professional experience and training, I have selected this target and identified 3 main challenges that this population face and may keep facing. And I would use my experience successfully to really, hopefully, inspire this audience. So the main challenges involve access to education. We've heard about that this morning. Access to healthy food, access to healthcare. But before I share with you my recommendation, I have a quick quiz for the audience. Who in this room think that they have at least one of these assets from the slide display now? Who? Commitment, clear vision, dialogue, politically savviness, partnership, cultural humility. Who? Raise your hand, please. Don't be shy. I don't bite. Awesome. That's my people. And if you don't, no worries. I believe that the leadership already lies in you and will be growing up. So these are the recommendations that I will share quickly with you. I will start with the nutrition piece. just because the education and healthcare example is really tied. I believe that as leaders, whenever in minority group or underserved area, we realize that there's a high rate, high prevalence of obesity or malnutrition, we should ask ourselves, why not everybody is obese or malnourished? There must be something there. We need to identify the community champions, the bright spot, and then learn from them and motivate them to share their strategies with the other people because they are facing the same context and same conditions. And we, as leaders, we are outsider. Does it make sense? The second part, education. Education is a tough one, but I will briefly share with you the experience that link education and healthcare. In my experience, HIV/AIDS, women living with HIV/AIDS are at higher risk to have the cervical cancer, based on the literature. And Haiti has the highest prevalence of cervical cancer in the Caribbean. So as the director of an HIV/AIDS program, I had to advocate to implement that service in the hospital. What happened? The challenges was most of my women were illiterate. So how to educate them, because it's a screening, I'm not sick, how to motivate these women who have no symptoms to really come to receive that service that you are providing. I basically use pictures. I'm a visual person, so I use pictures of cervical, normal, terrific pictures of cervical cancer, not scaring them, but just raise awareness. Because I can start talking, oh yeah, this is the cervix and so on and so on. They will not resonate with them, and they would not just come to receive the service. But guess what? The pictures worked. 95% of the people that attended that session came on Monday to have that screening. And the 5% were only because they were pregnant, so not eligible for the service. So now I would like to conclude. I hope that I'm not running out of time. The conclusion is that knowledge is power. As knowledgeable leaders, we must collaborate with community stakeholders to do what? To help them, not do for them, to help them identify their priorities, develop interventions to address them, taking into their consideration their culture, the resources available. And because great leaders tend to start off as great followers, we, not just Marilena, we, knowledgeable leaders, must definitely impact the future of the world. And my understanding is that we need to merge our expertise, our means, to implement practical interventions for a healthier world so that future generation would thank us for at least trying. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ling. I'm the elected State Assemblywoman from Malaysia in one of the states. I'm very happy and honored to be here today to join the IVLP and in today the Global Leadership Forum to share with you a little bit about my work in Malaysia. Being a young woman politician, how to promote and encourage more women to participate in politics is always my call. And in Malaysia, we have 222 members of parliament seats, but we only have 22 women parliamentarians, which equals to 10%. And we have 504 state assembly men in 14 states in Malaysia, and only 58 women state assembly person. And I'm one of the 58, which equals to only 11%. So are we satisfied with the numbers? Of course not. Because in Malaysia, we have more than 51% of women voters, but we only have less than 10% of women representation in the national and in the state level. So how are we going to fix this? This is my sharing with you that, next. Yeah, in political parties in Malaysia, either from ruling party or the opposition party, we have set up this 30% quota, the woman candidate, and this is recommended by the United Nations, where 30% you will have the critical mass to actually let the woman voice to be heard and to represent in the parliament and the state assembly. And not yet finished that. And yeah, I would like to share one of my personal experience that during the selection of the candidate before the election, when 3 years ago, and this is in my party, we was actually having this discussion and debate on the woman candidate. And this comment, actually a very typical comment that popped up in the discussion and debate was, and many of the male leadership tend to agree with that. And they say, yeah, we support women candidate, but make sure that you have qualified women candidate. So, is there a problem of this question? Yeah, for us it is. Because why you set the criteria, the qualified woman and not for the men? So, from this question, you can see that, is it meaning that all the men are already qualified? And yeah, this reflects the assumption and the perception towards a woman. That's why, next, I would like to share some more of the experience that women representative of my colleagues that still encounter in Malaysia. And I actually select the 3 examples that we are still facing today. The first woman speaker in Malaysia, her name is Hannah Yeoh, and she is the speaker of Selangor State. And she shared with us when she attends the gathering with other speakers, all men, only herself, woman, and without wearing the speaker's robe, and she always will be asked, either she is the wife of one of the speaker. So, yeah, in people's mindset, the women are always the speaker's wife. And the second, one of the women members of parliament shared with us, she used to be asked to remove her car in this parliament building where we have the reserved car park for the members of parliament. And she is the members of parliament, but she has always been asked to remove the car. And once again, the people mindset, the members of parliament are always men. And the third, one of the women MP shared with us, she was asked in the parliament session lobby, if she is one of the personal assistant or staff to MP. And again, once again, in people's mindset, that the woman can only be the MP's personal assistant or staff. So next. Yeah, so this is where the situation, the challenge that we are facing in Malaysia, how are we going to fix it? I think to break the old mindset and the stereotype of women is very important. That we have to keep on, continue, don't give up. If the people ask you to remove your car, you stand there and say, I'm the MP, I'm the state assembly woman here. And I think we have to keep on to creating the awareness to help people to actually rethink, to actually reimagine, to actually reconstruct the gender perspective. So I think this is a very famous quote because it's 2015. I think many of you heard of this quote by the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, last year when he defended his half-woman cabinet during the announcement. So for me, this is a very inspiring quote, and I'm very happy with my job that I'm contribute myself to be part of the solution. And for me, I think leadership is about giving your commitment, giving your effort, be part of the solution. So let us make a difference by saying yes to gender equality, by giving our commitment to more women participation in the politics. This is what I'm going to share with you. I'd like to say thank you, terima kasih in my language. Terima kasih means thank you for your time and patience. Let us make the difference by saying yes to gender equality. Thank you.
So, as promised, we brought you 4 speakers who, in fact, are, leaders, each of them dealing with issues that clearly cut across nations and we can all relate to. Unfortunately, in that last presentation, there were many times my head nodded, recognizing some things I know even happen here in the States. What I'd like to do, we have really just about 5 minutes left for questions. So I have a few in mind, but if there were someone in the audience that has a question that you think cuts across all of our speakers or that multiple speakers could respond to, they have microphones, and I'd love to take a question from the floor. Please, sir, can we get a microphone? Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you. So you have all served your leadership skills through challenging situations. In your opinion, do you think that this situation provided the help for this emerging skill, or you were a leader when you were born?
Well, I can briefly start. That's a great question. And there's actually an article about the 5 levels of leadership. And it argues that everybody has some level of leadership. So I would say that everybody is born leaders, but others just develop it as any skills. If you don't develop it, just like stay and just maybe you lose potential. But I believe that some people and the level 5, this article again argued that level 5 leadership are mainly born leaders.
Like that I said, and that I read an article from the Harvard Business Review like a few years ago about that's why my philosophy about transformational leadership came in. So in that article that David Rook and William Thomas, they mentioned that there are 7 levels of leadership. And people have different stage in leadership. So it doesn't matter, which age or, which position you are. So basically it starts with like opportunistic. So at this stage, you just join the career and then you want to win everything by all means. And then you create self-enemy by this type of leadership. That was the same happened to me, like when I joined start my career. After frustration, and then you wanted to be a diplomat. You don't want to argue people. And then at this stage, it is also very difficult to lead others because you are very peaceful. And next stage is like most of us, or most of the people have higher education, very high tech, the expert leadership. We wanted to create so many technical things, and we wanted to import a lot of features into our service, our products. So we want to be a professional in leadership. But the thing is, it will be very difficult to manage teams, and it will be very difficult to manage the management by objectives. So there are other 4 steps that can be like, you have to be like individualist, you have to be like strategist. The most highest level is called like alchemist. In the alchemist level, you will be like, you will transform, you will create the social transformation. Example like Nelson Mandela. So to create the across the globe, not even within their country, within their boundary. So at this stage, the leadership will be evolved into the higher level.
Is there another from the floor? Well, I have one, since there isn't one immediate. You know, I am taken, having read all of your proposals, I know that all of you are making change in places where resources are limited. So could you talk a little bit about how you've managed that and what types of interventions, what type of assist would be most beneficial to you in the work you're doing?
Okay, I'll give you a very good example about limited resources and how we've been able to surmount that challenge. I think the first thing is to focus on what you can do with what you have. If you focus on what you need that you don't have, then you just leave what you have laying fallow. So the first thing is, have you maximized the talent and the resources you have? Most of the time, the answer is no. I have a budget for my office for investigative journalism, let's say $2,000, and that would not do anything. So what do? We ask ourselves, can we do stories that I'll describe them as little effort, great result. You know, so we focus on little effort, great result stories, and then use the $2,000 for the other project. So we're forever pushing for creative ways on how to use people and use their talent, and that would make up for lack of resources most of the time.
I would like to share, I think the great ideas will come when you have limited resources. So I think being young politicians or young organizers, we must have more creative ideas and be open-minded to talk to people, to have more discussion. And from that, actually, we can learn from each other and get the best idea how to do it.
What I hoped we'd do is you'd have a sense, just a broad sense of these leaders, them being like all of you in the room. Our hope is that they ignite you to speak to each other, they ignite you to speak to them. And so with what little time we have, we hope that it's actually the fruition that occurs when we're not seated. That will be the real benefit of the session we spent. Thanks very much.